What if the simple act of kindness towards someone society deemed invisible became the key that unlocked a future beyond your wildest dreams? In the bustling chaos of Heavenly Fork Diner, where everyone rushed past Calvin as if he were merely a ghost with dishpan hands, Melissa saw something in his eyes that others missed. A flicker of dignity amid the steam and clatter of unwanted plates. Her decision to stand up for him when the manager hurled insults over a broken dish cost her the job she desperately needed to make rent. Unaware that the quiet man with calloused hands and threadbare clothes carried secrets worth billions in his pocket, neither of them could possibly know how this moment would set in motion a chain of events that would transform both their lives forever. The bills fanned across the kitchen table like autumn leaves, red notices screaming final warnings under the buzzing fluorescent light that cast sickly shadows across the small apartment Melissa shared with her sister Ava. Each envelope represented another door closing, another hope extinguished in the 4 weeks since she had stood up for Calvin at the diner and lost the job that had barely kept them afloat. Melissa swiped through her phone with trembling fingers, the 20th rejection email blurring before her eyes as the familiar knot of dread tightened in her stomach, twisting her insides until breathing became a conscious effort rather than an automatic function. The refrigerator hummed in the corner, its contents dwindling to condiment bottles and half a carton of milk that would need to stretch until something changed. Beside the stack of unpaid bills sat the orange prescription bottle, nearly empty now, a silent reminder that Ava needed refills for the medication that kept her chronic pain at bay, medication that cost more each month than they currently had to their names. Melissa had been skipping meals for days, drinking tap water to fill the hollow space in her stomach, while ensuring her sister ate whatever food remained. The hunger, a constant companion that growled and gnawed, but somehow hurt less than watching Ava wince with each movement when her medication ran low. The apartment manager had left another voicemail about the late rent, his patience wearing thinner than the soles of the only professional shoes Melissa owned, shoes she had worn to 6 interviews in the past week alone, returning home each time with forced optimism that crumbled behind closed doors. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders as she applied to another 20 positions online, everything from office cleaning to night security, positions far below her qualifications, but necessary in the face of mounting debt and dwindling options. The sound of shuffling feet drew her attention as Ava appeared in the doorway, her thin frame silhouetted against the hallway light, dark circles beneath her eyes, testament to nights spent awake in pain she tried to hide. "Are we going to be okay, Mel?" Ava asked with the quiet dignity that characterized her despite years of illness, her voice small yet somehow filling the cramped kitchen with its innocent trust. Melissa felt something crack inside her chest as she lifted her head, summoning every ounce of strength to curve her lips upward into what she hoped passed for confidence, even as tears threatened to spill from eyes that had forgotten how to hope. "We always land on our feet," she promised, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart, knowing she would walk through fire before letting her sister see how truly desperate their situation had become, unaware that across town a man she knew only as a dishwasher was about to change everything. "Friends, before we go further, may I ask a small favor? Please subscribe to our channel. It truly helps us keep bringing you these stories, and reaching 1,000 subscribers soon is so important for us to continue. We also love hearing from you. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see how our little storytelling circle is spreading across the world. And if you enjoyed the beginning, give this video a like, and let's share thoughts on the whole story together below. Calvin sat in his sparsely furnished apartment on Willow Street, a deliberate contradiction to the fortune he commanded, as evening shadows stretched across walls that had never known expensive art or luxury fixtures. Despite the billions flowing through accounts displayed on 3 monitors before him, the room held only functional furniture, deliberately ordinary in every way except for the cutting-edge technology humming quietly in the corner server rack that connected him to his vast business empire spanning 47 countries and 112 corporations that virtually no one knew he controlled. Folders of financial reports from his investment firms were stacked neatly beside a simple ceramic mug filled with cooling tea, the liquid untouched as his attention remained fixed on the information about Melissa Peterson scrolling across his center screen, revealing a life marked by perseverance against staggering odds. Property records showed 5 addresses in 7 years, each apartment smaller than the last as finances tightened. Medical records revealed her sister Ava suffered from a rare condition requiring specialized medication. Employment history displayed a pattern of taking jobs beneath her educational qualifications to accommodate her caretaking responsibilities. What captured his attention most, however, were the volunteer logs from 3 separate homeless shelters, where Melissa had somehow found time to serve meals every other Sunday for the past 4 years, giving hours she could scarcely spare to help those with even less. The soft knock at his door announced James, his executive assistant of 15 years, and one of only 4 people who knew his true identity and net worth, entering with a tablet displaying new information about the woman who had defended a dishwasher she barely knew. Her electricity had been shut off yesterday, James explained in his characteristically precise tone. Her eviction notice was being processed, and her sister had exactly 6 pills remaining of a medication that cost $800 to refill. Calvin swiveled in his chair to face the rain-streaked window, watching headlights from passing cars cast momentary illumination across his simple furnishings while contemplating the inexplicable moment when Melissa had placed herself between him and the manager, sacrificing her livelihood for someone society had trained her to ignore. He had donned the identity of Calvin the dishwasher 3 years ago, as he did in every city where he acquired new holdings, working alongside employees to understand the true culture of businesses before making investment decisions, yet no one had ever seen past the disguise or shown such courage in defending someone they perceived as beneath notice. His fingers traced the edge of a business card from Pinnacle Enterprises, the gleaming headquarters where he spent 3 days each week as CEO Alexander Thornton, a world away from steaming sinks and greasy dishes at Heavenly Fork Diner. James waited silently as Calvin made his decision, knowing the rare expression that crossed his employer's face meant someone had triggered his curiosity in a way that happened perhaps once every several years. Curiosity that inevitably changed lives forever. "Let us see," Calvin murmured, "what someone who defends strangers might do when fortune finally favors her." The cream envelope arrived without warning on their 3rd day without electricity, its thick, expensive paper looking utterly foreign against the scratched laminate of their kitchen table where bills multiplied like unwelcome guests at a party no one wanted to attend. Melissa turned it over in her hands, suspicious of its weight, and the handwritten address in elegant blue ink, finding inside an offer that seemed plucked from fever dreams or fairy tales rather than the harsh reality that had become her daily existence. The letter offered a position as executive assistant to the CEO of Pinnacle Enterprises, starting immediately at a salary that made her eyes widen and her breath catch, the figure representing more money than she had earned in any 2 years combined. With an interview scheduled for 9 the following morning at an address in Westbrook Heights where houses started at 7 figures and security gates protected the privileged from the desperate, Ava clutched her arm with fingers made thin by illness and medication, her eyes bright with an emotion Melissa had almost forgotten existed between them. Hope, dangerous and fragile as a butterfly in winter, fluttering to life as Ava insisted this was the miracle they had been silently praying would arrive. Morning found Melissa standing before their cloudy bathroom mirror in her only interview outfit, a navy blue dress purchased 3 years earlier that hung slightly loose on her frame after weeks of sacrificed meals, applying drugstore makeup with meticulous care to hide the exhaustion etched beneath her eyes, while Ava braided her hair with fingers that trembled from both excitement and the pain of medication wearing thin. The gleaming glass tower of Pinnacle Enterprises rose 50 stories above the city like a monument to wealth and power, its mirrored surface reflecting clouds and sky as Melissa approached, feeling every scuff on her shoes and every mended seam in her dress like neon signs announcing her as an imposter in this realm of tailored suits and confident strides across the marble lobby. Security checked her identification with polite efficiency before escorting her to an express elevator requiring keycard access, the doors closing on the world she knew, and opening moments later to reveal a reception area larger than her entire apartment, decorated in shades of silver and blue, with views spanning the entire city through floor-to-ceiling windows that made her momentarily dizzy with their unobstructed height. The executive assistant who greeted her, James, moved with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged in these rarefied heights, leading her through double doors into an office where sunlight streamed through windows that transformed the space into something almost ethereal, illuminating the man who rose from behind an expansive glass desk to greet her with a smile that triggered something like recognition in the farthest corners of her memory. Alexander Thornton introduced himself with a firm handshake and eyes that seemed to see through her carefully constructed facade directly into the desperation beneath, unaware that she was looking at Calvin, the dishwasher transformed by expensive suits and the trappings of wealth that had always been his but never defined him. Vernon scrolled through his social media feed with manicured fingers that had never known dishwater, a smile spreading across his face like oil on water when he spotted the update from a former waitress who mentioned seeing Melissa entering Pinnacle Enterprises wearing a visitor badge that transformed into an employee credential by lunchtime. The manager of Heavenly Fork Diner leaned back in his Italian leather chair, surveying his office with its polished mahogany desk and walls adorned with framed photographs of himself, alongside minor celebrities who had visited the restaurant, each image carefully positioned to create an illusion of importance and connections that existed primarily in his imagination. Crystal decanters caught the morning light on a sidebar that cost more than he paid his kitchen staff in a month. The expensive furnishings, a stark contrast to the mildew-stained employee break room where staff crowded onto broken chairs, and the perpetually filthy kitchen where he had berated Calvin daily for imagined infractions until Melissa had interrupted his power display. Vernon pressed a button on his desk phone, barking orders for his assistant to bring him coffee, while opening his contact list to several other restaurant owners across the city, men who shared his philosophy that employees were disposable resources rather than people deserving of dignity or fair treatment. His voice dripped with artificial charm as he connected with each one, dropping hints about potential investment opportunities through his new connection at Pinnacle Enterprises, the company whose CEO, Alexander Thornton, was rumored to have turned several local businesses into regional powerhouses through strategic investments that seemed to materialize for those who caught his mysterious attention. Beyond his office door, servers hurried through their morning preparations, voices hushed whenever he appeared, eyes downcast to avoid triggering the legendary temper that had reduced grown men to tears and sent single mothers home without pay for infractions, as minor as a water spot on silverware or a moment of rest during 12-hour shifts. Vernon pulled up property listings on his computer screen, scrolling through commercial real estate far beyond his current means, but within reach if he could leverage whatever position Melissa had lucked into, his mind already calculating how to pressure her through references to her sister, whose medical condition had been common knowledge among staff he pretended not to eavesdrop upon. He added investment packages for restaurant expansions to his cloud drive, fabricating profit projections and glossing over the health code violations hidden in file cabinets beneath falsified inspection reports, preparing to present himself as a successful entrepreneur worthy of financial backing rather than the failing businessman whose books remained balanced only through wage theft and supplier manipulation. Selecting his most expensive watch from the drawer, Vernon practiced expressions of sincerity in his desk mirror, while mentally noting that Melissa lived in Eastridge Apartments based on delivery addresses he had seen on employment paperwork, planning an accidental meeting that would begin the pressure campaign to exploit her newfound connection to wealth that should have been his, completely unaware that the dishwasher he had tormented and the billionaire he sought to reach were one and the same man. 4 weeks into her position at Pinnacle Enterprises transformed Melissa from nervous newcomer to indispensable assistant, her natural organizational abilities flourishing in an environment where her ideas received respect rather than dismissal. Alexander Thornton remained an enigma despite their daily interactions, his schedule meticulously arranged by James to include numerous video conferences and off-site meetings that limited their face-to-face time. Yet something in his voice, or the way he tilted his head when considering complex problems, occasionally triggered flashes of familiarity she could never quite place. Her responsibilities expanded beyond typical administrative duties when he assigned her to oversee grant applications for the Thornton Foundation, a charitable organization that provided emergency funding to families facing medical crises and housing insecurity without publicity or recognition. Each application told a story achingly familiar to her own recent circumstances. Parents choosing between medication and rent, single mothers working multiple jobs while caring for ill children, families one paycheck away from homelessness despite their best efforts. Melissa found herself staying late into evenings reviewing cases, the quiet hours after the regular staff departed, allowing her to process the emotional weight of selecting which desperate situations would receive the anonymous financial lifelines that arrived like miracles for the recipients. The foundation office occupied the entire 48th floor, walls of windows revealing city lights twinkling like earthbound stars while she worked, her desk lamp creating a pool of golden illumination against the deepening blue of twilight, the space feeling increasingly like somewhere she belonged, rather than somewhere she had landed through desperate luck. On her 26th evening working late, searching for quarterly reports Alexander had requested for an upcoming board meeting, Melissa opened a cabinet she had never explored, finding a folder marked simply Observation Series 7, labeled with dates from 3 months earlier. Curiosity overrode professional boundaries as she lifted out photographs of Heavenly Fork Diner, images capturing the exact section where she had worked, including staff meetings and several clear shots of Vernon berating various employees. Her fingers trembled as she found photos of herself serving customers, then images of Calvin at the dishwashing station, his face partially visible in profile, bearing a startling resemblance to Alexander, despite different clothing and context. Moving to her computer, Melissa pulled up company records showing Pinnacle had acquired the building housing the diner 6 months earlier, followed by subtle management changes and pending renovation plans that included significantly improved employee facilities and profit-sharing programs. Sleep eluded her that night as puzzle pieces shifted in her mind, questions multiplying with each connection she made between the dishwasher who had never spoken more than a dozen words to her and the brilliant businessman who now trusted her with millions in charitable funds, the possibility seeming simultaneously absurd and increasingly plausible that Alexander Thornton and Calvin might somehow be the same person. Rain fell in relentless sheets across the city as Melissa hurried from the bus stop toward her apartment building, her new umbrella struggling against wind that seemed determined to strip away this small luxury along with everything else she had gained in the past 6 weeks. The click of expensive shoes against wet pavement alerted her seconds before Vernon materialized from the shadows between buildings, his cologne cutting through the clean scent of rainfall as he stepped directly into her path with a smile that never reached his cold, calculating eyes. "Fancy seeing you here, Melissa," he said with artificial warmth that made her skin crawl, his cashmere coat repelling water while his hand shot out to grip her arm with surprising strength when she attempted to step around him. She noticed his silver luxury sedan idling at the curb, engine purring with quiet wealth, windshield wipers slashing rhythmically through the downpour like a metronome counting down her freedom. Vernon leaned closer, rain dripping from his perfectly styled hair as he mentioned knowing about the shoplifting incident from her senior year of high school, when desperation for feminine products for Ava had overwhelmed her judgment, the sealed juvenile record he should have no knowledge of, but clearly did. His proposition emerged between false pleasantries and thinly veiled threats. Arrange meetings between Alexander Thornton and select restaurant owners, or watch her precious new beginning crumble beneath revelations about her past indiscretions, carefully researched and documented to cause maximum damage to her professional reputation. Each word fell like poison into the life she had carefully reconstructed from the ashes of her previous existence, the home she could now afford, the medication Ava could access, the newfound security transforming from solid ground to quicksand beneath her feet. As Vernon described exactly how he would systematically destroy everything unless she complied. Across the street, shielded by rain and tinted windows, Calvin sat motionless in his unmarked sedan, knuckles whitening around the steering wheel as he watched the confrontation unfold through a windshield streaked with rivulets that distorted but could not disguise the fear transforming Melissa's posture from confidence to hunched protection. The microphone he had activated on his phone when first spotting Vernon approaching her captured every word, every threat, every detail of the blackmail attempt, fueling a cold rage he had not experienced since watching his mother face similar intimidation decades earlier. The carefully constructed walls between his identities began crumbling within his mind as he witnessed Melissa trembling in the rain, her umbrella forgotten at her side as Vernon invaded her space with entitled confidence, the familiar pattern of predator and prey playing out before him while he remained hidden behind glass and pretense. The decision crystallized in his mind like ice forming in winter. The time for hiding behind dual identities had ended, but revealing the truth meant risking the genuine connection he had begun building with someone who saw him as a person rather than a fortune. The Thornton Foundation Gala transformed the Botanical Garden atrium into a wonderland of light and scent, crystalline chandeliers reflecting off marble floors while guests in evening wear navigated between towering floral arrangements reaching toward glass ceilings where stars punctuated the night sky. Melissa circulated among donors in her new midnight blue gown, coordinating staff with discreet hand signals while keeping one eye on Alexander as he addressed a cluster of potential benefactors, her attention caught by the distinctive way he tilted his head when listening intently, the exact same angle Calvin had used when concentrating on particularly stubborn food residue at the diner sink. The observation joined dozens of others she had catalogued over recent weeks. The specific rhythm of his fingers drumming when thinking deeply, the slight favoring of his left leg after long periods standing, the crinkle at the corner of his eyes when genuinely amused rather than socially polite, all forming a constellation of evidence impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Finding him momentarily alone beside an enormous arrangement of white orchids and blue hydrangeas, their reflection doubling in the mirrored wall behind a flowing champagne fountain, Melissa stepped into his personal space with newfound confidence born of certainty. "I know who you are, Calvin," she stated simply, watching recognition flicker across his features before his shoulders relaxed with what appeared to be relief rather than alarm. Alexander nodded once, maintaining eye contact as champagne bubbles ascended in crystal flutes around them, like tiny effervescent metaphors for secrets rising to surfaces, admitting his dual identity without offering explanations for why he had singled her out for rescue from circumstances he had witnessed firsthand. Their conversation flowed with surprising ease despite its extraordinary nature, touching on societal judgments based on appearance, the invisibility of service workers, and the masks everyone wears, until Melissa asked the question burning within her since discovering the truth. Why her? Why now? Why reveal a secret he had clearly protected with extraordinary measures for years? Before he could answer, commotion erupted near the entrance as Vernon pushed past security guards, his voice carrying across polite conversations like thunder across still water, demanding attention from the assembled wealthy patrons while pointing accusingly toward Alexander. "The dishwasher playing Billionaire has fooled you all," Vernon announced with malicious triumph, producing printed photographs of Calvin at the sink, alongside images of Alexander from business publications, smugness radiating from his posture as conversations ceased, and all eyes turned toward them at the center of the room. Melissa watched panic flicker across faces of board members and investors as Vernon continued his tirade, threatening exposure across social media unless he received financial compensation for his silence. Unaware that his public accusation had done more to legitimize Alexander than damage him, as the man in question calmly buttoned his jacket and stepped forward to address the crowd with the quiet dignity that had always been present, whether he wore dishwashing apron or tailored suit. The truth emerged between them like delicate gossamer threads woven into understanding as Melissa sat across from Calvin in his actual home the evening following the gala. Not the penthouse she had imagined, but a modest two-bedroom apartment in a middle-class neighborhood where bookshelves lined walls instead of expensive art and family photographs occupied every available surface rather than status symbols or luxurious accessories. Warm lamplight cast gentle shadows across volumes on economics, alongside well-worn paperback novels, as Calvin revealed how 21 years earlier he had been a 16-year-old boy watching his single mother work 3 jobs to keep them housed and fed. His first investment coming from 4 years of saved dishwashing wages, combined with scholarship money to purchase a failing restaurant whose owner had treated employees with respect despite financial struggles. The business flourished under operational improvements and genuine care for workers, profits funneling into additional acquisitions across hospitality industries, then expanding into technology and sustainable energy, his fortune growing exponentially while he maintained the practice of working entry-level positions within each new company he acquired. His fingers traced the edge of a silver frame containing an image of a woman with his same thoughtful eyes, as he explained how his mother had taught him the invisible workforce supporting every successful business deserved dignity. Regardless of position, her lessons reinforced when Vernon Jones, 20 years younger but equally cruel, had fired her from a serving position for defending a kitchen worker accused of breaking expensive plates, the termination leaving them sleeping in their car for 6 weeks during winter months before she secured new employment. Financial statements forgotten on the coffee table between them revealed billions in assets controlled through holding companies and investment trusts, as Calvin described, establishing the foundation using his middle name to honor her. Memory after cancer claimed her life 8 years ago, his voice softening when sharing how he recognized in Melissa the same fierce protective instinct that had defined his mother when she stood between Calvin and Vernon despite knowing the cost. Family recipes handwritten on index cards were magnetized to his refrigerator beside takeout menus, the ordinary domesticity of his living space revealing more about his character than any corporate biography, as he confessed watching her volunteer at homeless shelters despite her own precarious circumstances had compelled him to intervene in ways he typically avoided, breaking his own rules about maintaining professional distance. Melissa found herself reaching across the space between them as the final pieces clicked into place, her hand covering his in a gesture that acknowledged the shared understanding between two people who had experienced how quickly security could transform into desperation, their connection deepening through revealed vulnerabilities. As rain tapped gently against windows, overlooking a neighborhood park rather than city skylines, the modest surroundings revealing more truth about the man than any luxury setting ever could. The annual Children's Hospital benefit transformed the Grand Excelsior Ballroom into a shimmering wonderland of crystal chandeliers and ice sculptures, society elites mingling among tables draped in midnight blue linens as waitstaff circulated with flutes of champagne and trays of delicacies prepared by celebrity chefs. Vernon burst through the ornate double doors, with 4 reporters trailing behind him like eager hunting dogs, his face flushed with vindictive triumph as he marched directly toward the stage where Calvin had just finished announcing a $10 million matching donation to pediatric cancer research. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vernon announced with theatrical volume designed to capture every ear in the vast space, "your generous benefactor has been lying to all of you," presenting 3 enlarged photographs, showing Calvin washing dishes alongside daily newspapers displaying current dates. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, As camera flashes erupted from the journalists, Vernon had promised exclusive stories about the dishwasher pretending to be a billionaire, satisfied smirks spreading across their faces, until Calvin calmly approached the microphone without a flicker of distress visible in his composed expression. "Yes. I wash dishes at Heavenly Fork Diner several days each month." Calvin acknowledged with quiet dignity that somehow commanded more attention than Vernon's bombastic accusations. "Just as I stock shelves at community groceries, deliver packages during holiday rushes, and work assembly lines in my factories because understanding the backbone of business means experiencing every position within it." The room fell silent as Calvin motioned to James, who distributed folders to the reporters containing documented evidence of Vernon systematically embezzling funds from 3 previous restaurant positions, tax evasion spanning 7 years, and witness statements about verbal abuse and wage theft from 20 former employees. 4 uniformed police officers entered through side doors precisely as the journalists began examining bank records, showing hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled from restaurant accounts into Vernon's personal offshore holdings, their timing suggesting this moment had been anticipated and carefully orchestrated rather than hastily assembled. Former Heavenly Fork employees, including the cook Vernon had physically threatened and 2 servers whose wages he had withheld, emerged from the crowd to stand beside officers, their presence transforming from invisible service workers to crucial witnesses, as Vernon lunged toward Calvin, only to be restrained by security personnel who had positioned themselves strategically throughout the ballroom. Melissa watched from beside the stage as handcuffs gleamed under chandelier light, justice materializing in polished metal circles, closing around wrists that had pointed accusingly at others while stealing from them for years. The cosmic balance righting itself before hundreds of witnesses who would carry this story throughout social circles with far greater impact than any planned press release could achieve. Golden morning sunlight poured through the newly installed windows of Community Table Diner, transforming the space once known as Heavenly Fork into a warm haven where workers owned equal shares following the ownership transfer Calvin had arranged 12 months earlier. Melissa adjusted her foundation badge bearing the title Executive Director as she slid into a booth across from the man whose dual identities had now merged into a public figure celebrated for innovative business ethics rather than hidden billions. Her business textbooks tucked into the leather bag he had given her when she completed her first semester with perfect grades. The renovation had transformed more than physical space, replacing harsh fluorescent fixtures with warm lighting that highlighted photographs of employee owners along walls once reserved for corporate inspirational posters, creating an atmosphere where dignity infused every interaction from kitchen to counter. Former co-workers approached their table with genuine smiles rather than customer service masks. The cook, who had once feared speaking up, now confidently describing menu specials she had created herself, while the server, who had worked alongside Melissa, presented coffee with proud mentions of her new healthcare benefits and the college courses 4 staff members now attended using profit-sharing funds. The aroma of fresh baked bread and brewing coffee mingled with sounds of laughter from the kitchen where staff called to each other by name rather than position, the entire environment reflecting the philosophy Calvin shared as they observed the thriving business built on respect rather than exploitation. "Wealth means absolutely nothing without maintaining connection to humanity," Calvin explained, watching sunlight illuminate floating dust motes that danced between them, like tiny messengers carrying truth through air scented with possibility and cinnamon. The simplicity of diners teaching more about genuine human needs than any executive boardroom ever could. Melissa nodded her understanding, her eyes taking in the elderly regular customer whose medical bills the foundation had quietly covered, and the single mother whose childcare program they had funded. Connections formed through seeing people as individuals worthy of investment rather than problems requiring solutions. The business degree she would complete next spring felt less like a qualification and more like a tool for expanding their shared vision. Her lived experience of poverty, combining with formal education, to create leadership that remembered what invisibility felt like. Their partnership had blossomed from that first moment of seeing beyond surfaces, her defense of a dishwasher and his recognition of her inherent worth, creating ripples that transformed dozens of businesses in their expanding network, where employee ownership and dignity-based policies replaced traditional hierarchies. As morning light strengthened across tables where conversations flowed between people once separated by artificial barriers of position and class, the truth they had discovered together became visible in physical form. Wealth existed in connections formed when humans truly saw each other. Value transcended bank accounts and job titles, and a single moment of authentic recognition could transform not just two lives but entire communities, built on the revolutionary power of simply being seen.